Good evening, everybody. I'm singer-songwriter Annie Dechant coming to you live from Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm so excited to have you here for our program with music and justice for all. Welcome to everybody. This is brought to you courtesy of Lakewood Public Library in Lakewood, Ohio. I'm Annie. This is guitarist, my friend and vocalist, writer also, John Prestia. And this is Frye Gaillard, my friend up from Mobile, Alabama. He is my friend, my co-writer, and a great author. And he's going to tell you about the program with music and justice for all.
Thank you, Annie. It's good to be here and good to see the folks in Lakewood. Annie and I met not quite 10 years ago, and in one of the very first conversations we had, we were talking about kind of the literature of song lyrics, how they explore the human condition in ways that are not unlike any other kind of writing, whether it's poetry or fiction or nonfiction or whatever it may be. And one dimension of that is looking at the issue of justice, which is to say the issue of how we treat each other, the issue of how we take care of each other. In this particular holiday season, it seems relevant to remember that we're all children of God, which makes us brothers and sisters of each other. And we all inhabit a fairly small planet. So with that in mind, we're going to do a combination of reading and song. I'm going to read from some of my own work, and Annie is going to sing some of her original songs and a couple of covers at the very end of the show. So I want to start with a short reading about one of my musical heroes, a flawed and complicated hero who nevertheless kind of set the tone for what we're going to be doing tonight. It stands there on the left, a mile or two beyond the tacky frontiers of runaway suburbia, looking like an antebellum prop on a movie set. Unlike most recording studios in Nashville, the House of Cash rises stately and alone against a backdrop of rolling Tennessee pasture land. The grass is still bent from the dew, and the sound of a mockingbird echoes faintly across the hillsides as Johnny Cash's Cadillac glides into the parking lot. It is 8:30 in the morning, a time of day he would have dreaded a few years earlier, during the 7 or 8 years when he would begin each day by gulping a handful of amphetamines. He wasn't too particular about the dosage. 10 or 15 milligrams a pop, it didn't much matter as long as they did their thing. As long as they helped him get from one concert to the next on the long road trips. And then finally, as long as they help him exist from one miserable morning until the one that followed. The side effects were predictably squalid. He would pace the floor until the wee, desolate hours of semi-dawn, until finally barbiturates would bring him down and lull him into a nightmarish sleep. He developed a nervous twitch in his neck and apparently in his brain as well, judging from some of the things he did, as his metabolism ran its tortured course from uppers to downers and back again. He was arrested and jailed 7 times on charges ranging from public drunkenness to buying drugs from illegal sources. On one of his stops in jail in Carson City, Nevada, only an impromptu version of Folsom Prison Blues managed to pacify an unglued lumberjack whose avowed intention was to strangle his more famous cellmate. He once crashed through a warning gate at a U.S. Navy bombing range and drove 4 miles across a live minefield in the Mojave Desert. He drove tractors over cliffs, wrecked 6 expensive cars, and tore up his marriage. Yet somehow he managed to survive until 1968, when, as Chris Christopherson put it, he found himself a good woman and found himself also reintroduced to Jesus. All of that has stamped his music with a distinctive tension, a creative tug of war between toughness and sentimentality, idealism and earthiness that has enabled him to reach an impressive array of people and emotions. He could stroll on stage at San Quentin Penitentiary and sing a few old spirituals like Peace in the Valley, tugging on the heartstrings and the latent laid-away softness that does not usually show itself behind the walls of a prison. And then he could break suddenly into one of the most ruthless and hard-hitting prison songs that many of the inmates had ever heard. San Quentin, I hate every inch of you. You cut me and you scarred me through and through. And Johnny Cash saw no contradiction at all.
One, two, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, Daddy, hey, get on your knees and pray. I'm going up to make 'em for my sentencing today. They don't believe a word that this poor boy has to say. Hey, Daddy, hey, get on your knees and pray. Hey, Judge, hey, I could use some mercy now. Is borrowed forgiveness too much for you to allow? Give me a little time and let the truth come out somehow. Hey, Judge, hey, I could use some mercy now. When you shot that gun, Johnny Gale's your man. He knocked me out and put that pistol in my hand. Once you found a patsy, everybody went along. But are you gonna kill me to prove killing's wrong? Hey, Mama, hey, they're gonna put me in the ground. I'm going to see St. Peter, I hope he wants me around. When he finds out you're my mama, well, I might be heaven bound. Hey, Mama, hey, they're gonna put me in the ground. When you shot that gun, Mama, I'm your son. I might have took what wasn't mine, but I never killed no one. I know I done some wrong and I'm sorry for your pain. But you always saw the good, so remember me that way. Hey, baby, hey, I called to say I love you so. Your pretty face is the last thing I'll picture when I go. So when they put that needle in, it might not seem so awfully cold. Hey, baby, hey, I love you so. Daddy, hey, get on your knees and pray. Free. Woo! That's John Prestia on guitar. Oh my goodness, hi everybody. It's so good to be with you. It's so good to be with my friends John and Frye. I'm going to do a tune for you now that is appropriate for the reading that you just heard from Frye about Johnny Cash. No secret that Mr. Cash liked to sing about trains, and I wish famous pieces about trains is mentioned here. The very cryptic title is Train Song, but this is a story about life passing you by, life right at you, life in the past. And so I think in a lot of ways, when I listen to Folsom Prison and Johnny talking about people riding by and him being stuck where he is, I find some similarities between what's talked about in each of these songs. And it really is life, and it's using a train to tell you and talk about things right in front of you, away from you, and long ago. So this is Train Song. We got that, Aaron? Everybody get ready. Let's go on a ride. Everybody's got a train song. I gotta go and search my soul song. I hit the track, might not come back song. Run from my past, damn love don't last song. Hear the whistle blow, whispering to your gypsy soul. But like them Folsom prison blues, you got walls holding you. Hear that whistle blow. Everybody's got a story, a fall down hard, a glimpse of glory. Oh, woulda, coulda done if only. She broke my heart and left me lonely. Hear the whistle blow, whispering to your gypsy soul. But like them Folsom prison blues, you got walls holding you. Hear that whistle blow. Come on, John. Everybody's got a wish. Go back and get something I missed. And I done dared, but I was scared to take a risk. And I should have leaned in for that kiss. Hear the whistle blow, whispering to your gypsy soul. But like them Folsom prison blues, you got walls you can't move. That whistle blow. That is Train Song, and that is from my CD, The Sun Coming In. And Frye, I'm gonna ask you a favor. I know you brought your book, Live as If, A Teacher's Love Story, which is a book about your wife and my friend Nancy, who passed in 2018 of leukemia. And this is a book all about her and a love story to her and about the two of you. And in it is, it's my favorite story about Nancy. And I spoke with her before she passed and told her that I loved that story about her so much, which it's such a great expression of her wisdom, her bravery, and her love. And I would love for you to read that from that book tonight.
Okay, would be very happy to. So Nancy was an educator for her whole career. She started out as an elementary school teacher and then became a principal, and then finally ended her career as a professor of education at the University of South Alabama in Mobile. And this particular story occurred when she was principal at Billingsville Elementary School in the inner city of in Charlotte. And it was kind of a dangerous neighborhood, and even some of the kids knew that. And so this is the story that you asked about. There were parts of Greer Heights, the neighborhood around Billingsville, where the crime rate was high and drug dealers gathered at dusk on the corners, and even the good people were afraid. One afternoon, a little girl who lived in Greer Heights came to the principal's office in tears. "Mrs. Gaillard," she said, "I missed my bus, and I'm afraid to walk home by myself." "I'll walk with you," Nancy replied, and the two of them set out together for a house that proved to be about a mile away. It was a trek full of cheerful conversation, but the sun was sinking low in the sky when Nancy began the long walk back. The drug dealers and their customers had begun to gather. "Hey guys," said Nancy as she approached a group of men, "I need you to help me take care of my school." A few of them stared back with hard eyes, while others grew sullen and turned away. But after a moment, one of them said, "Okay, ma'am, we'll try." Nancy's friend, Ted Follett, a legal aid lawyer whose work took him often to Greer Heights, would later marvel at that encounter and how the word went out in the neighborhood that this white lady was not afraid. "She accosted the leading drug dealer in the area," said Follett, "and asked him to protect the school so that she could get the Greer Heights kids what they needed. That was fearless and showed a selfless disregard for her personal security. But it also showed an uncommon wisdom. She must have thought that this drug dealer was once a child and probably did not get his needs met. She knew that even a drug dealer wants to feel good about himself and could take some civic pride in helping the underserved kids in Greer Heights get what he missed. That is real wisdom. That is focused determination to succeed in a tough environment. And the neighborhood did begin to change."
Right. I remember you telling me that Nancy's attendance at her school was the highest. Was it in the state?
Well, it was the highest in the school district of 160 some.
Wow.
It was the only school for several years that met its attendance goals. And when the administrators finally asked her, "Well, now, how are you doing this?" she said, "We just try to make it a place where kids want to come." And one of the ways she did that was that she every morning would go out when the buses arrived and greet all the kids by name as they came into the school. And, you know, for her, this was where the rubber hit the road, right? I mean, we talk about people on the margins of society getting what they needed. And she felt like it all started when they were in school, and that's where you could, you know, provide love and limits and knowledge and all the things that kids need. And she loved kids and they loved her. One of my favorite stories that she told was that there was a little girl at the school who could never get her name right. Gaillard, just Mrs. Gaillard, just didn't
Huh.
register. And so the little girl, the whole year, called her Mrs. Schoolyard. And when the year was over, she wrote this note saying, "Thank you so much, Mrs. Schoolyard." So it was fun. She had a good time.
I love it. All right. Here's a song that Frye gave these lyrics to Nancy. And we wrote this together in this very room, I think. You are my second chance. You make me wanna try again. You shine the light on a new day. You're bringing into a dark night, telling me it'll be all right. Help me see in a different way. You are like the sun coming in. You are that quiet voice telling me that I got the choice to let you be my friend, to live like love is meant to last. You help me forget the past and wash away my sins. You are like the sun coming in. I believe in things that time has tried, that you count on to brighten up your life, like the sound of your footsteps down the hall, your strong hands to break my fall, the love in your voice when you call. You are my second chance. You make me wanna try again. You shine the light on a new day. Oh, you bring it into a dark night, telling me it'll be all right. You help me see in a different way. You are like, you are like, you are like the sun coming in.
A few years before I had the chance to write the book about Nancy, I wrote another family story. And it was more complex and more multi-layered, and in some ways a much harder story. It was the story of my own family and its passage through Southern history. My family is an old Southern family. They got off the boat in Charleston, South Carolina in 1680. They were French Huguenots, Protestants, fleeing religious persecution. But then they came to this continent and became part of the fundamental persecution, the fundamental injustice of the whole American experience, because they became slave owners. When the Civil War came, a generation of Gaillards fought in that war, almost all of them for the Confederacy. It was not a glorious experience for them. It was not a glorious lost cause. It was a time of suffering and bitterness and loss. And the family continued its journey into the 20th century. And some of us in my generation found ourselves drawn to the civil rights movement and to the search for equal justice regardless of race in our country. And so it was my hope when I wrote this book that the family experience might serve as some kind of metaphor, some kind of sense of possibility for the country as a whole, that we could start in a very bad place and end up in a much better place. But I also wrote in the epilogue of the book how reassuring it was for me to meet some other folks who had written the story of their family as well. And so this passage is called Family Values. I worried that a story rooted in so much privilege might inevitably cause hurt or give offense among those who began their journey on the other side of America's great sin. That was when I met the Davises. Myra Davis Brannick and her cousin Jerry Martino were serious genealogists who had traced their ancestry to Utahville, South Carolina, to the very plantation, in fact, where my great-great-great-grandfather, Peter Gaillard, had owned hundreds of slaves. I have a vivid memory of my first conversation with Jerry. He called one day not long after this account was first published and said he'd like to get together. He was tracing his family history, he explained, and discovered that it overlapped with mine. How so? I asked. Your family owned mine, he replied. I have to admit, nobody had ever said this to me before, and I'm not quite sure how I replied. But Jerry came to visit, and we discovered that our understandings of history were almost identical. Our families might trace their roots to different circumstance, and there was bitterness and suffering in that truth. But there was a measure of redemption in the fact that we knew it, in the fact that in our own generation, we could decry with equal fervor not only the evils of an earlier time, but the racism and continuing injustice that must be combated even now. And so we could also celebrate, for there was nothing that affirmed our common humanity more clearly than the notion of family. Once during my time as a journalist, I had a conversation with the great Alex Haley. We talked about the success of Roots, his epic account of his own family from its West African origins through the dreaded Middle Passage to enslavement on a Southern plantation. Haley gave a face to all of this, and he helped Americans, black and white, see it in a way that many of us never had. But the greatest success of his book, Haley thought, lay in the fact that every family has a story, and none of those stories ought to be forgotten. As we talked, I told Haley that I too had written a book more modest than his, telling the story of my family, how they had fled religious persecution in France, only to become slaveholders in the antebellum South, how they had fought and suffered in the Civil War, embraced segregation in the 20th century, and how some of us in my generation had cast our lot with the civil rights movement. At the end of our conversation, I asked him if he would sign a copy of Roots for my wife and me. On the title page, he wrote, "To Frye and Nancy, love, Alex Haley." The inscription in part was simply a reflection of Haley's kindness, but I think it may have been more than that. I think it may have been a gentle celebration of mutual redemption, of liberation, found in the stories of our families, in the very idea of family itself. Against this backdrop in 2020, my friend Myra Davis Brannick sent me the electronic manuscript of a book she was writing on the Davis family, which my family had once owned. It was a marvelous story of their journey from enslavement in the 1700s, a story of achievement and family bonds lovingly preserved down through the generations. Myra permitted me the honor of writing a foreword for Cornbread My Soul, this book that was her labor of love. In her account, she was generous in her mention of the Gaillards, detecting, I suppose, a glimmer of decency even in our ancestors' time. But I suspect the generosity might have been tempered, if not for our mutual engagement with the hard side of history. Myra and Jerry and other Davis cousins I've met in recent years all see the hard side clearly. They believe it has to be reckoned with, but they do not believe it has to be crippling. They believe it can be overcome. With gratitude, I believe this too. It is not easy, but we do have the opportunity to try.
This is a song that Frye and I wrote during the pandemic, and it was produced by Mike Sievers during a pandemic when song files, musicians' vocals were being sent to him via the magic of the internet. This is Change. I can't pretend that I'm the one who has been put upon. I can't pretend that I am not to blame for measuring the state of things by how it's treating me, believing we're treated all the same. I was thinking that our history had nothing to do with me. I wasn't there, no blood is on my hands. If I tremble at the cross of Jesus, then the words I can't breathe mean I gotta understand. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Hey, what kind of change am I? What kind of change are you? Come on, listen to our brothers, love our sisters, love each other. The call ain't nothing new. What kind of change are you? Now I'll tell you that I've traveled far down the road with my guitar, and in all the places that I go. On the poorer side of town, good folks get trampled down. Lord knows they got dreams they want to grow. They're tearing down the family dollar, putting up an ice cream parlor. $7 will buy a gourmet cone. If we keep draining all the color, then we'll never know each other. Neighborhoods are lines that we have drawn. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Hey, what kind of change am I? What kind of change are you? Come on, listen to our brothers, love our sisters, love each other. The call ain't nothing new. What kind of change are you? Here's where we begin. Oh, love wins. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Are you ready? right, that is Change, written by Frye Gaillard and Annie Dechant. I know both of them. We want to thank Aaron, who's behind the wheel once again, doing all the technical stuff that I don't know how to do and I'm afraid of. So Aaron, thank you. She's waving. She's doing this. Do we have people on chat, Aaron, that I say hi to? Oh, good. Bruce from Washington State. Hi, Bruce. Nice. Oh, Jennifer's here. Hi, Jennifer. She's in Illinois. Oh, that's so nice. Oh, good. Tabitha, hi. How are you? Oh, I'm so glad you're here. This is what's great about live streaming is that you really can get to the entire world. I don't. Amy Crocovitz Montoni. I don't know. Where are you from, Amy? How do I know you? Do I know you? I know you now. That's the most important thing. Oh, Jill. Oh, this is excellent. Erica, we're coming to see you soon. Oh, Rachel. Rachel Gaillard's Smoke Frye's daughter, Rachel from Boston. Hi, Rachel, and hi, Susan. Rachel is my photographer, so she comes and takes pictures of me, which I am not fond of, but she makes it really fun. So that's Rachel's work right up there. So hi. All right. Tina, hi. So we're so glad to be here. And I want to thank Andrea Fisher at Lakewood Public Library for talking with me. I think it was probably at least 6 months ago, Andrea, that we talked about doing this. And you had asked me about a musical program, and I told you about With Music and Justice for All. And you were like, that sounds perfect for a library. And you're like, that's why we, that's our main sort of focus is to bring this to libraries. So Andrea, thank you for having such an open mind and for bringing this to your library and now via live stream to everybody here that's here tonight. The song that John and I just did for you, Change, is, something we wrote when asking ourselves what kind of part we played in our country's history, what it might have to do with all the things going on at the time, and then what sort of change that might happen on a large scale. And what I've discovered through writing, thank God for being able to write and discover things and learn that way. What I learned was that if you don't look at something like, Frye, you just expressed in that reading, if you don't look at it, it cannot possibly be healed. And that goes on a societal level, I have found, and also on a personal level. So I just sang you a song, in that wider sort of range, so to speak. And now I want to do one for you on it's a more personal look at healing and also at illness. And I was telling my friend Sandy Ramos when I wrote the first part of the song, I said, Sandy, I have this opening line, and I love it. And I'm trying to get through this song. And the first line is, I grew up on the right side of the tracks. Mommy planted daffodils. Daddy mowed the grass. Girls pushed baby carriages. Me and the boys ran round the bases, and flags in the front yard waved all American. And I knew I had something, and I was stuck, but I started to explain to my friend Sandy, I grew up in this neighborhood that I compared to like a Steinbeck novel, like all the characters in it are that vivid and that unique. And it was crazy, I told her. And she just looked at me and said, Annie, everybody did. Everybody grew up in a place like that. So this is a story gathered from my memories of where I grew up, but I know that all of us can relate to it somehow. This is Secrets of Little Girls. 1, 2, 3, 4. I grew up on the right
right side of the tracks. Mommy planted daffodils, Daddy mowed the grass. Girls pushed baby carriages, me and the boys ran round the bases, and flags in the front yard waved all American. It all looked like heaven, but it could feel like hell. Skeletons in all our closets, we kept them hidden well. In every neighborhood there are 1,000 different worlds and secrets of little girls. All us kids played hide and seek and spy. One night Patty's daddy's Cadillac crept into a neighbor's drive, and the blue-eyed shadowed Mama 3 crawled into his backseat. Patty ran crying, but her mama never knew. It all looks like heaven, but it can feel like hell. Skeletons in all our closets, we kept them hidden well. In every neighborhood there are 1,000 different worlds and secrets of little girls. Ronnie lived across the street. Her mama drank herself to sleep. At night we'd meet and sneak cigarettes, then count shooting stars. The veteran blared his radio. He taught me every word, Ohio. These teenage boys from down the street stole my innocence from me, but they were daffodils, baseball games, flags flying on Memorial Day. Don't they keep us quiet that way? It all looks like heaven, but it can feel like hell. All I know looking back is you should tell. In every neighborhood there are 1,000 different worlds and secrets of little girls.
In 2018, I came out with a book called A Hard Rain, America in the 1960s. And it's a thick book, as you can see. I will never do this again, I promise you. And I tried to write about this extraordinary decade in the history of the country. The coming of age decade for me, I went from being a kid to a young writer in the course of those 10 years. It was a time of turbulence, a time of disillusionment, a time of war, a time of division, violence. But it was also a time of hope, of people trying to, in all sorts of ways, make the world better. And I'm going to read an anecdote from that decade that was important to me and gave me a sense of perspective and a sense of hope as the decade moved toward its very troubled ending. It's a story, I think, that is both big and also very personal and very individual all at the same time. And it seems like a good way to close the reading part of the program tonight. Christmas Eve of 1968 found 3 Americans reading aloud from the book of Genesis. They had given careful thought to their text, choosing poetry as majestic as any ever written, the voice of man trying to find words for the moment of creation. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. These were not sentimental men reading these words. Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and Bill Anders were astronauts. And at that moment, they were farther from home than any human beings had ever been. They were circling the moon. It took them 3 days to get there. When their spacecraft immediately went into orbit, circling the dark side from which no communication was possible. The silence lasted 34 minutes. When the module finally emerged to cheers from the NASA ground crew, the 3 astronauts witnessed a sight no human had ever beheld, an Earthrise. There was their planet, some 40% of it still in shadow, the rest nearly heartbreaking in its beauty, blue and fragile and covered with clouds, floating alone against the darkness of space. It was then that the Apollo crew began to read. "For all the people on Earth," said Anders, "the crew of Apollo 8 has a message we would like to send you." When he finished the first 4 verses of Genesis, Jim Lovell continued, "And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day." Back on Earth, we listened spellbound, for it was Christmas Eve and nobody had ever told the story this way. From 250,000 miles away, with a black and white image of our planet on the screen. When Lovell paused, Frank Borman, the stocky crew cut commander of the mission, brought the reading to a close. "And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear, and it was so." When the mission ended after 10 lunar orbits and the Apollo 8 crew returned safely to Earth, Madeline Murray O'Hare, founder of a group called American Atheists, sued the US government for violating her First Amendment rights. In effect, she said, these Bible-reading space cowboys, as representatives of the state, had established an official religion for the country. The Supreme Court dismissed her suit. Most of us could not have cared less, for we were still in awe, transfixed now by the color photograph taken by Anders, far more dramatic than the black and white image on TV. Galen Rowell, a young Californian who soon became an award-winning National Geographic photographer, called Earthrise the most influential environmental photograph ever taken. What Rowell understood was that the photo became the ultimate illustration of a new force in America, a rising environmental consciousness that was on its way to becoming a movement. In 1968, much of it was cultural, reflected, for example, in the writings of poets like Wendell Berry, a Kentuckian who worked a family farm while publishing novels, essays, and poetry. The same year, in Openings, his latest book of verse, Berry published a poem called The Peace of Wild Things, reflecting on the lessons to be learned from nature, the inevitable interdependence of humankind and the natural world, which we seem to regard as a lesser creation. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free.
This is a song by the Police, and sadly apropos. All right, give me that first.
Hey.
$50 million ago, you walked upon the planet so Lord of all that you could see, just a little bit like me, walking in your footsteps, walking in your footsteps, walking in your footsteps, walking in your footsteps. Hey, Mr. Dinosaur, you really couldn't ask for more. You were God's favorite creature, but you didn't have a future. Walking in your footsteps, walking in your footsteps, walking in your footsteps, walking in your footsteps. They say the meek shall inherit the earth. They say the meek shall inherit the earth. Hey, mighty Brontosaurus, don't you have a lesson for us? You thought your rule would always last. There were no lessons in your past. You were built 3 stories high. You said you would not hurt a fly. If we explode the atom bomb, would they say that we were dumb? Walking in your footsteps. Come on, come on. Walking in your footsteps. Walking in your footsteps. Walking in your footsteps. They say the meek shall inherit the earth. They say the meek shall inherit the earth. Walking in your footsteps. We're walking in your footsteps. Walking in your footsteps, walking in your footsteps. 1, 2, 3, 4, bow! Woo! That's John Prestia on guitar and vocals. This is my buddy Frye Gaillard, who came in from Mobile. This is with Music and Justice for All. I want to let you know, and Frye, you need to let me know. I'm like a used car salesman. And look at this studio. Frye, you know, sometimes I think you forget that you sell these books, but I'm here to let everybody out there know that all of these books are available. And where are they available,
You can
Frye?
get them on Amazon.
Amazon?
That's probably the easiest way. You can order 3 of them from New South Books.
New South Books, so
New
that's your
South Books
publisher.
in Montgomery. The one about Nancy, Live as If, a Teacher's Love Story, Amazon's the best place to get that.
Okay, good. So get yourself one of Frye's books, and you can get my CDs and all things Annie Dechant at anniedechant.com. Erin, could you post that link for everybody? But I'm so glad that so many of you have joined us tonight. I'm always happy when you come. I'm always afraid that no one will come. Like it'll be like Little Man Tate's first birthday party, not the second one in the movie. But I'm thrilled that you're here. I'm thankful. Thank you once again to Lakewood Public Library. Andrea, thank you so much for asking us to be here with your audience and letting us bring in ours so that we could all be together tonight and sit back and relax for a little bit and listen to some beautiful reading and share some music. So I'm going to do a song that I actually started to do during the pandemic on my show, the 11:30 Bathroom Break. And I came to love it, and I came to just understand how simple this song is and how beautifully simple it is. I mean, that's the key, wouldn't you say, John?
I would say.
Yeah, just to write and very simply and be poignant all at the same time. And Ben E. King certainly did that with this next song. So I would love to do it for you in tune. So John has gently commanded me to make sure I'm in tune.
Oh, I'll be so happy.
And then I think we're going to go to dinner after this. I suggested everybody goes for a late dinner or a snack. So we're coming up on the holiday season, and for me, it's always been a kind of easy time. I think that's because my mom's so good at Christmas, which is what my family celebrates. And I know for some people, it's not such a great time. And also we're headed into another season where we have to be really, really careful, with ourselves and with each other. And it can sometimes feel isolating. So I want to sing this song with all the heart that's in it and send it out to you, remind you that you're not alone, to stay safe, and that we're all connected. 2, 3, 4.
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see, no, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid, just as long as you stand by me. If the sky we look upon should crumble and fall, and the mountains should stumble to the sea, I won't cry, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. Darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. If you're in trouble, stand by me, stand by me. We'll see. I won't cry, no, I won't.
Hey, everybody. It's so good to see you. I like ya. I love ya. We like ya. We love ya. Good night. Frye Gaillard, John Prestia, and I'm singer-songwriter Annie Dechant. Good night. Hey, does anybody have any questions or comments or
Lots of
want
comments
to-
about the guitar,
John?
the reading, the show, the voice, the choice of songs.
Beautiful. We're getting good reports from Aaron. That's good. So we're gonna
Always
get
good.
paid.
Lots of
That's
thank
good.
yous, lots of thank yous.
And if there are any questions anybody has, we usually, in a live setting, open it up if you do have any. And if you don't, that's cool too. So, Aaron's letting us know, just comments coming through. All right.
Lots of thank yous.
Oh, you're welcome. Everybody, you're welcome. Thank you. So get yourself a book, get yourself some music. John, you have a record coming out, don't you?
Yeah, but in a while,
In a while, John Prestia. So look up him on Facebook. I know you're there.
I'm there.
And spell like it sounds.
FACEBOOK.
Oh, is smart, Alex. See what I have to put up with? Now we're gonna turn off the camera and yell at these guys. Good night.
Night.